Glory to Jesus Christ, brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I had the privilege of speaking with Tessa Willaims about her time in the adult industry and her journey to Jesus and Christianity. We really expose some of the dark secrets of the industry, and she pulls no punches. So I'm really excited to share this one with you. It's raw, it's honest, and we do touch on some really intense subject matter, so viewer discretion is advised. God calls us to confront the darkness and evil of this world. He also calls us to show other people that Jesus Christ isn't just for people who have had easy and uncomplicated lives. This episode does both of those things. So thank you for listening and enjoy the podcast. Tessa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I've really been looking forward to speaking with you. The first question that I have for you, I like to ask pretty much everyone because it kind of sets the stage. But what was your early life like? Did you grow up in a Christian home, or was your story a little bit different?
No, I grew up in the Brethren Church, and my family came from South Africa. And I guess they kind of found a quickest way to build a community was to join a church, and they joined the Brethren Church. And my earliest memories from that church are all negative. I remember being a little girl playing with my dolls on the floor and having them snatched out of my hand and told to pay attention. And just, as a little kid, we can't understand what the pastor's saying. We can't understand those words. And just everything that I was doing was picked on and told it's not good enough, not good enough. And then even in the Sunday school, it's not like the Sunday schools we have now. It was very advanced, and I don't really have any positive memories about them, even as far as the church camp for the youth. For that, it was it was nothing uplifting. It was nothing about building us up. It was just about judging who we were and what they thought we were. And that was kind of my last straw, that I just said to Mum, I want nothing to do with this religion. If I am this horrible, sinful, bad person, then I'm going to go be with the sinners.
It
Like
sounds
there was no impressing them. Like you could even, like I felt like I was trying so hard to impress them and just to make them happy because, yeah, being compared to other children as well in there. And so I would try my best. And then at the end, it was not good enough. So I thought, okay, if I'm a bad person, I'm going to go be a bad person.
So it sounds very legalistic, very performative. Like, unfortunately, that's a stereotype that a lot of people have about Christianity in general. Cool that you're from South Africa. I was born in Johannesburg. I've
Oh,
definitely lost the
nice.
accent, but so that's pretty cool. So what were your teenage years like? So you come from South Africa. Like that can bring a lot of challenges to immigrating, learning a new culture, and everything like that. What were your teenage years like? Were they a pretty good time for you?
No, no, I was very, very teased in high school. I was always very, very different to everyone else, but it was just my taste in stuff. I wasn't into the surfy culture. I wasn't into grunge music. I was into the B-52s, and I was like Babysitter's Club books. So I was very much teased. So I was very alone. And the same with the church, kind of brought that energy there. And I was teased at home by my older sister, who was my biggest bully my entire life. So it was hard. School and home life were very, very dark times for me during my teen years. And um, yeah, and the church didn't help. At the time, I never really prayed much. I never really understood the Bible. I never knew to ask God to help me. I just thought, okay, the world is against me, and I was very depressed. And that's where I kind of started on antidepressants. Is in high school. My mum and the doctor thought it would be a great idea to build my self-esteem up by putting me on antidepressants.
So that must have been a difficult thing for you. So it sounds like you were struggling with your mental health. You were struggling with, fitting in, learning what your place is in the world. You were quite alternative. What
Yeah.
happens next for you? Because ultimately you're kind of drawn into the adult industry. Were you seeking something there that you weren't finding?
No, mum thought it'd be a good idea to put me into modeling, like to kind of build my self-esteem up because you see models on TV and they kind of, especially in the 90s, how the models were just idolized. And that was the worst thing she could have done because it went from being teased to being just made to feel like I wasn't good enough. Because as they say in the modeling industry, you're not tall enough, you're not thin enough, you're not young enough. And they will always remind you of that. Even when you're booking a gig, they will tell you on set, you should lose weight, honey. You should really clean up your skin. You should do this. You're not very tall. You're not getting any younger. I was 16, mind you. And I was being told all this stuff. And yeah, it was the worst thing they could have done. And from there, it was toxic relationships of boyfriends that kind of knew of my insecurities and preyed on those insecurities, because there are some very, very toxic men out there that they know these insecurities and they try to make you feel very, very small. So I think I dated the worst of the worst around then. And the one that was in particularly bad is the one that took me to my first strip club. And he thought that this strip club was going to make me feel so bad about myself. And I did not want to go there. I was really scared. What I knew from strip clubs is from what I saw on TV, they were dingy and there was some sad girl on stage. But no, as soon as I went through that door, I saw the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life. And it was how I wanted to be. And I just looked at them like shocked. I mean, these women exist in real life. I thought they were only on TV. And coming from Perth, you never see women like this, like Baywatch girls. That's what they look like. They look straight out of Baywatch. And there was one who was dancing on stage, and she looked like she was my age. Like, I was so shocked that she had this charisma and confidence that I wanted, and even the look that I wanted, the body that I wanted. So I kind of ignored him and I went to go sit by the stage. And he was shocked. He thought that I would be so upset and insecure seeing this, but it was the opposite. It was who I wanted to be. So I was tipping this girl and just saying, "You're so pretty. You're so pretty." And then yeah, she was just very sweet back to me as well. And he decided to really try and push my buttons and say he was going to take her for a lap dance. And then the dancer turned around and said to him, "Take your girlfriend too. That is so rude." And then when she was giving him a lap dance, he was paying her compliments like, "Oh, Tessa, don't you wish you had a body like that?" And she would turn around and go, "Yeah, but your girlfriend's got a hot body as well." Like sisterhood, she was standing up for me, which was so rare because I never, even in the modeling industry, it was like competitive. But this girl was like bringing me up. And then he went to go touch the dancer to untwist her G string. And she slapped him so hard in the face that I've never seen anyone do it before. And the bouncers dragged him out. And as I was walking out after him, she grabbed my arm and said, "What are you doing with this loser?" And I said, "That's my boyfriend." She goes, "You should work here. You don't have to worry about guys like that. You would make so much money here." And I went, "But I'm not pretty like you. I'm not good enough." She goes, "No, no, honey, you are good enough. You're way good enough to work here." And that's when finally I felt, "Oh my goodness, you mean I am good enough to be here with you girls?" Like it was kind of a light bulb moment in my head, like brain chemistry altered. And that moment, yeah, even days after that, I decided to get rid of him. I decided that this is going to be the new path I'm going to take. Like this guy was so bad, I needed 2 restraining orders to get rid of him, and I had to relocate to Sydney. But I was so determined that this is the job I was going to get. So the last modeling job I ever did, which was the Bailey's commercial, I bought breast implants with that money because that was my goal, was to work in a strip club. So as soon as my surgery was done, I went looking for strip clubs, and I went to Twin Peaks in Woolloomooloo, and I chickened out when I got to the front door. I had to like really hype myself up. And I went in, and on my first shift, I was telling every guy not to book me. And the owner called me over and said, "Missy, when you're here, you work. You don't tell guys, 'Don't take me, don't take me.' You have to work. Come back when you're ready." So I came back the next day, and another girl kind of helped me to dance. Yeah, from then on, I stayed in the industry about 10 years, but the stripping industry.
That's incredible. So, what age were you here? Because you start modeling when you're a teenager, and they're already
Yeah.
telling you you're getting older. Did you say you were 16 years old? And they were telling
16, 16. I even remember one of the mums of one of the girls sitting next to me when the agent at the time, her name was Maxine, said, she asked me a question regarding a casting. And she goes, "How old are you?" And I said, 16. She goes, "Too old." And the mum next to me just coughed and went, "What?" Like, it was ridiculous. Like, I felt at that age I was getting too old. Like, why these young girls? And I'm not talking about for a kiddie show. I'm talking about fashion shows like at car shows or at bikini shows. And they were these very, very, very young girls. that modeled around then. And there was even a contest called Misbehave, and all the girls were like very young. It was also a clothing label at the time called Misbehave. And it was just at the time, just even looking back. And when I went to Sydney to continue modeling, I did more the commercial side. I moved away from the fashion side. And it wasn't really so much my age, but yeah, I did okay in that, but not happy. I didn't feel sexy. I was playing someone's mum, a mum of four, and in my early 20s. And just, yeah, it's the one industry that makes you feel ugly, the beautiful industry.
That's crazy. So it sounds like basically the opposite of what your mother wanted to happen ended
Yeah.
up happening, right? This was
Yeah.
an incredibly damaging thing for you. Your ex-boyfriend sounds like a complete monster, like
Oh,
trying to
yes.
take you somewhere to make you jealous. That's incredibly manipulative. um,
Mhm.
and disgusting. And that actually ultimately introduces you to the adult industry because you meet a girl and finally someone's kind of in your corner, they're affirming you. And so that seems like a
Mhm.
good thing to a lot of people, and you hear this a lot when women that are interested in the sex industry go on podcasts and they talk about it. They talk about the affirmation, the money, the self-esteem, and obviously those are the kind of things that stood out to you. It does sound
Oh,
at the
yeah.
same time though like you were not fully comfortable with like doing lap dances, I guess, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you're kind of told to come back when you're ready to do that. So that must have been challenging for you. So what happens next? So you're working in strip clubs. Ultimately, you end up being in the adult entertainment industry for much longer than that. Maybe take us through the next few years of your life.
I met my ex-husband now, the first year that I was stripping, because a lot of people say that no one wants to marry a sex worker. Oh, yes, they do. A lot of men want to marry sex workers. And my ex-husband saw me as a meal ticket. So I was there. It was the money for him. And when I wanted to have a baby, he decided to destroy all my ID. And according to his best friend, told me that he went back to Finland to get a vasectomy. So that would never happen. I would never lose my body. I would never leave that industry. So he made sure I was there and the money would continuously be coming in. And it just, yeah, I hated the strip clubs. I hated being there. It was hard, getting harder and harder to make money after a while. And I realized that I needed to get away from this guy. The funny thing is, for the first 5 years, he was the sweetest, nicest guy. And then he showed his true colors the second that I said, I want to start a family. He showed his true colors. He brought a woman home to her. Like, I came home late from the strip club and I found there was two glasses in the sink and one had purple lipstick. I don't wear purple lipstick. And yeah, I found out that he on purposely was cheating because the next day we had to go to the fertility clinic. So he yeah, turned out, showed his true colors after that, turned out to be an absolute monster. So I started to make my plans to get away from that marriage. And I wasn't quite cutting it in stripping anymore because it was hard because the industry had gone down and there was this new wave of girls doing everything for $50. So I thought, okay, maybe I need to go into escorting to it was around that same time that I was stripping. Maybe start looking at escorting. I don't have any ID. I can't get a normal job. I can't get government assistance. I can't even move to a new house. So escorting just looked like the perfect transition for it. So yeah, I did a few jobs in escorting. I remember like in my marriage, it was 50-50. And if I didn't have money for the bills, for half my rent, for half the groceries, I don't eat. And if I don't eat, the cat doesn't eat. So 40 cents, I couldn't even share a can of tuna with my cat that week. So I thought, now's the time. Pulled up an escort service. I sent them a few photos. They sent me on my first job that week, and it was into this hotel room. And the guy had booked me for a few hours. And I remember standing out the front and saying, when I leave this place, I'm going to be a prostitute. I got to learn to live with that now. So when I left that building, I left with quite a few thousand. And then as I was in the bathtub that night, I just thought, I've got to suck it up because this is going to be life now. Like I've got more than enough money for the bills and the rent and everything else. And yeah, I don't have to worry about not eating again. And then I called up a male friend and I said that, come over and sleep with me. I need the memory of this man off me. And the thing is, my husband at the time knew what I was doing. kept his mouth shut as long as the bills and everything was paid for. And it was the time that I wanted to get him out. And I thought, what can I do to infuriate him to get him out? Because nothing I'm doing and saying, the money's coming in. That's all he's happy about. So I decided to go film a porn. That is the one thing I knew that he hated, because the fact of his family finding out what was happening behind the scenes would have humiliated him. And that's the one thing he told me from the beginning: never ever do porn, even lesbian porn. It's disgusting, and I don't want anyone seeing you like that. So I decided to do a video to really drive him nuts. So I wasn't secretive about it. I wrote about it on social media. I knew that my sister-in-law was the biggest busybody on the planet. Even took photos of, not explicit, but behind the scenes and stuff, and then promoted it online. And that's when one day he came home and he said my name, Contessa Doll. And I went, yep, that's me. And he goes, I'm leaving you. And I went, finally. And then he said, how long have we been married? And I said, 10 years. He goes, I've been cheating on you the whole time. And I said, I really don't care. And I know. And I said, you need to get out. And he agreed. He got out. Apparently, his whole family had seen that video because of my sister-in-law. His friends had seen that video. And that was the only thing that humiliated him, not them finding out that I was a stripper or anything, or how I helped supported his Australian dreams. It was that the straw that broke the camel's back that just had him moving out. And I was so relieved. I felt finally at peace. And I continued escorting, just not too long after that, because BDSM came calling after that. I shot a few porns after that. They called me up and said, international guest has come over and he wants to film with you. So I just filmed. I hated doing porn, to be honest. It was not as good as what people think it is. It is scripted sex. It is, yeah, it's very, not like humiliating. I'd call it more boring than humiliating. It's, doesn't pay that much as it does in America, and it's not what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do came later, which was the BDSM industry.
Wow, that's a lot to work through. I don't even know where to start. I mean, like, firstly, your ex-husband, so you have this terrible boyfriend, then you have a terrible husband. You guys were
Mm-hmm.
together for almost 10 years. And it's unbelievable that the way that he treated you. It's just disgusting, to be honest with you. And so you do this almost to get revenge on him, but
Yeah.
and it's interesting that you say it's boring. I've never heard anybody say that. I think a lot of young girls think that it's very glamorous. What would you say to girls that think perhaps becoming involved in that kind of industry is glamorous? What would you say is something that you only see once you're there that would maybe discourage people from participating in that?
There was nothing I could call glamorous about it at all. Like for me, because I did modeling, it was boring for me. It's scripted sex. You got someone holding your leg off to the side because I'm not very flexible. You're running through positions. It's almost like mechanical, kind of running through um, these different types of positions and everything. And half the time, you don't even like the person you're working with, but you just have to kind of smile through it. And then what I hated was getting my makeup destroyed, because this makeup and hair looked great, and then afterwards it'd be completely destroyed. But it wouldn't. I wouldn't say it was great. It was thrilling. It was what people think it is. It was boring. It was dirty. It's there forever online. That's what people don't realize. That couple of hours of shooting and that few $100s is not worth it being online forever. It was not worth it at all, because no matter how many times you delete those videos or report them, they come up again, because the websites don't want to lose that views and everything else. It just comes up under a different name. And that's the worst thing about it, is that it's there. If I Google my old name, all those videos come up. And it's just not worth the very few videos that I shot for that not so much money I shot. That's the worst thing that I would warn girls about.
That makes a lot of sense. And then you actually get into, maybe you can explain, because obviously a lot of my audience are Christian, and we are touching on topics today that are obviously for a more mature audience.
Mm.
Like, what would you say is different between the standard sort of industry stuff that people might be familiar with, and like BDSM specifically? Like, what drew you to BDSM?
BDSM draws in people that have a lot of pain in them. Like some people cut themselves to deal with their pain. BDSM is very similar. Like I first, like when I was a lot younger, say in my 20s, I was reading a lot of these books from the Marquis de Sade, who is the grandfather of BDSM. Like I picked it up in a secondhand bookstore and it was written in the 18th century. And it was so disgusting that I couldn't even read it. I put it down and my heart was going 100 miles an hour, but it was like a car accident you can't look away from. And I'd pick it up again and read it, and I was just intrigued by it. Something in it was just drawing me in. I put myself in the position of the aggressor, of the person holding the whip, the person hurting these people, and it got me excited. And it just thought, hang on, I've been hurt by people. Imagine if I was the one that was doing the hurting. In I just look back to all those guys when I was young that were trying to force me to have sex with them, or even like later on, like when I lost my virginity, just these men that took advantage of me. What if I was in that position of taking advantage of them, of hurting them? And it just got me so excited. And that's what kind of intrigued me. And I would be talking to people about it, saying, does this really happen? And they would go, oh, yeah, it happens. It's an underground scene. It's they do have some clubs in Sydney, and but people didn't really want to talk to me about it. They thought that I was sick for bringing it up. So I just decided to do my own research, and anyone who knew anything about it, I was writing down the details. So it led me to a club called Hellfire, and that's when I went for the first time, completely out of my league. And then I ran into my first master, who was going to be my first master. And I spoke to him, and he took me under his wing. And for 1 year, I worked as a slave to learn what it was like. That's how I kind of got my training from.
That's really intense. So like I think for people who don't understand, right, there's like generally a master slave kind of dynamic or relationship.
Yeah.
What like what's the appeal there for both parties, do you think? Like cuz it sounds like a lot of people value their autonomy. What do you think is the advantage of giving that up? Do you think that it's a healthy thing for people to engage in?
No, I call it rescripted trauma.
Yeah,
A
we'll
lot of
get into
people
that,
are,
right? Because
yeah.
when you start working in the industry, that's when that becomes really relevant, right?
Mm.
Um So yeah, so you work as a slave for a while. You've got this master, and then you actually end up being in the industry, right? And you do this
Yeah.
professionally.
He suggested one day that I should become a dominatrix. And I went, really? You think I'd be that? Like, I was so excited. And I was all for it. And he took me to my first dungeon, like, told them that I was one of his best students. And that was the last time I ever saw him. And I worked at this place, and like, I swear to God, these women are like the Disney witches. I was used to being at strip clubs where girls were just all pretty and sweet and young, but these were much older women that just looked like witches. And the first thing, they were just snickering when they saw me because they thought, who is this idiot who came in, who does not have that standard hardcore BDSM look with all her piercings and tattoos and, yeah, black bobbed hair. So I had to really, really prove myself that I fit in there, and I was one of them. And I did that by whatever job that they did not want to do, I will do it. I would put my hand up and go, yeah, I'll do it. Yep, I'll do that. No problem. I'll do that. And it just from then on made me very popular. For some bizarre reason, the guys liked the fact that I just didn't look like them, but I was doing these services that were just downright unlike anything they would do. I would even be going online and researching the most hardest stuff that I could find out there, and even finding ways around it and just playing into their dark fantasies. And that's how it became very, very popular with a lot of clients. And also the fact I didn't look like a dominatrix, and doing this made it even kind of more kind of perverse. And that's when I started winning awards because of yeah, word got around. It's not like today how every second girl calls herself a dominatrix. It was back then when it was still very, very underground.
That's really intense. So it sounds like you're part of like these underground clubs. You start to meet people, but obviously there's some kind of industry if you're winning awards.
Yes.
So there are these. So is it? I'm assuming it's like mainly male clients that are paying you to act
Yes.
out whatever kind of fantasies they have.
Yeah, there are women that come to these places as well that come and see the guys. And like, I would not do a woman unless she was with a man because hitting a woman was too close to home for me. So I would only have couples in there. But one on one with a woman, I told a lot of women, I'm sorry, I can't. It's just a personal boundary for me that I can't hit a woman and hear her screaming. But the men, on the other hand, it was just open season for them.
And I think you say elsewhere that it wasn't just for some people, some of your clients, right? You had many clients,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming it's different for different people. Maybe some people they get into more and more extreme stuff, and so this is just the only way that they can like feel excitement. I don't really like
Yes.
know. I would assume that's part of it. But then you started to meet people that actually had some pretty terrible things happen to them in their lives. Can you tell us a bit about that? Because I think that's part of maybe like the dark side of the industry that people aren't aware of.
Yes. I had people trying to rescript abuse that they faced, sexual assaults that they faced. It wasn't just older men that had every high dopamine pleasure in their life trying to look for something new. It was a lot of men that had something, had some form of abuse in their past. Like one, but I refused to do one service with a man who had recently been sexually assaulted by another man. I said, I can't do that. We can sit and we can talk about it. But because he said that he was going to kill himself because every time he thought about the sexual assault, even though he's straight, his body would betray him and get aroused. And I told him it's perfectly normal. That's just the body's defense. It's nothing. It doesn't mean you liked it. And I just encouraged him to go see a doctor. Like that man could have hurt you. And he just said he felt like less of a man. And I said, listen, when you walked in this room, I didn't see less of a man. I saw a man. That man didn't take anything from you. And it's just people like that who were trying to re-script stuff that had happened to them. And I was the same, but except I was in the position of the aggressor, saying things, repeating to them things that I had said to me. And also when I started dressing like a nun and playing out these role plays, I've never had real encounters with nuns, but that was my way of mocking my past because I had Bibles, I had religious objects and everything. And it was kind of like my middle finger back at my past because you hurt me so much. I was going to hurt others using the Bible. And a lot of them did go through religious trauma. And so it was bringing back memories of that. And yeah, I realized I was not alone with that. So yeah, it was a lot of us were just re-scripting stuff that happened to us.
That's really heavy stuff, thank you for sharing vulnerably
Mm,
about it. Uh, I think it's good. It's like it's difficult to have these conversations, especially on a Christian podcast, but
mm,
I think it's good for people to realize that these issues are very complicated. And so when we meet people in sex work, I think it's really important to remember that they are human beings, that this is a very complicated situation a lot of the time. And I know now in your new life, you actually do work with people that are
yes,
coming out of that background. And I know it would mean so much to them that you've actually experienced a lot of what they have. And so I find it really interesting this psychological significance of BDSM, that like people are trying to heal their trauma. People are
yeah,
it's not just for kicks. So
yeah.
during this time were you enjoying it? Did you start to get to a point where you were thinking like, I don't know if I want to do
Oh,
this long term?
yeah, I was really in, I'm not going to lie, I was enjoying it. It's like a toxic relationship for me that even now, I'm like, yeah, still, like leaving a very toxic, violent relationship and you're thinking about it constantly. Sometimes you miss it. But I just have to tell myself, where did it bring you? It brought you nothing but happiness. You were suicidal. Like God is remolding me in a way to see relationships and love in a different and more healthy way. It's not about hurting someone. It's not about feeling superior by standing over them with a whip or about even hurting myself continuously, like with most of this equipment. It's about just positive, the love between two people, which I think God is really setting me aside and really working on me mentally and physically. And just that's why I don't date. I don't. nothing with the opposite sex. And while God is just busy healing me from my past. But yes, I really enjoyed that life. I used to hurt myself a lot. It was just a way of getting that rush that people don't understand. Once you reach this certain level of pain, it's like you're so high. It's like the highest drug that you can. You just feel like, honestly, it's the best drug you're on for a long time, for a while after that. And I was chasing this high, and then I wasn't realizing that I was pushing myself harder and harder. I was on so much medication that I was hurting myself till I could feel that pain, that level of pain. And it just got to that point where, yeah, even I didn't even know my boundaries. I, yeah, that's the scary thing. That's what people unalive themselves when they're playing these games by themselves, like asphyxiation and that they don't know their boundaries and they are pushing themselves harder and harder, which is why I speak about this so strongly, because people do die. People die playing this on their own. And there's just a lot of people going, but it's a healthy way of dealing with your sexuality. No, it's not, because you're going to go higher. You're going to get bored and you're going to go harder.
Hello, and please pardon this brief interruption. If you're enjoying the podcast and want to support my work, the best thing you can do right now is to find my links in the description box below or in the show notes. Those links will take you to some of the other platforms that I'm investing in. I offer exclusive content on some of them that you won't see anywhere else, and I also offer early releases. Plus, it's a great way to get in touch with me personally if that's what you're interested in doing. Following me on those platforms helps way more than you think, and it doesn't cost you a cent. To those of you that have already done that, thank you. I couldn't do this without you, and your support does not go unnoticed. But for now, back to the podcast. That does happen a lot. I've
Yeah.
definitely seen news articles. I think we all have of people experiencing that. Were drugs a big part of your story during this time, or
Yeah. I was on meds. I was on a lot of medication. I was on tranquilizers and antidepressants. And it was because I was just, every time I felt something emotionally, like I didn't like that. I just felt like a robot. And because I was numb emotionally, I was numb physically. And sometimes I couldn't hurt myself enough to get that level of pain back. But yeah, like even putting these needles through my skin to feel some form of pain. That's why I liked electricity, because it hits straight past the nerves to the bone. The kind of pain that I was looking for, that high that can help me just deal with stuff that I thought was giving me the ultimate high afterwards.
that's huge. So it sounds like for some people, it's almost like a form of therapy. Not that I think it's probably a very healthy form of therapy.
Yes, and a lot of people say it's a form of therapy, and I thought I was helping people. I thought as long as they're not harming themselves behind closed doors and doing serious damage, and they got me as a professional, even teaching them a safer option, I thought I was doing God's work by helping these people, because they were always coming back to me and thanking me for, yeah, for making them feel normal.
I
Yeah,
can
low,
understand that.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I could definitely understand that. I mean, I wasn't always a Christian. I've been in some pretty toxic relationships, and it can be very difficult, like especially if you haven't had it modeled to you, to know what a healthy relationship looks like, and what
Mm,
stability looks like. And even when you become a Christian, all these things don't just magically melt
yeah,
away. Sometimes it's a process.
yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for sharing about that. So while you were doing this, what comes to when do you kind of come to the point where you begin to move away from this industry? Was that I know your story and I know
Mm.
when that happens, but maybe you could take us through that.
Yeah, I noticed my clients were getting younger and younger. It was what was eye-opening to me. People don't know that I used to work in childcare before all of this. And I was seeing these boys younger and younger coming in. Of course, everyone's ID checked at the doors of these places. So like these boys had come in, they just turned 18 and they wanted to experience some really very intense, very advanced stuff. And it just really disturbed me the first time. And then I would tell them, why are you doing this? And then they said, porn doesn't do it for me. Sex doesn't do it for me. And they've tried sex with a normal sex worker. They just didn't feel anything. It just wasn't as good as what, and you'd think a young man the first time with sex would be great. They would just say it was boring. It was, no, it wasn't good. They'd been so brainwashed by porn that they're into this hard stuff. And they would even, like, I wouldn't know where to start with them. They would go around the room picking the equipment that they wanted to use. Like, I would explain to them how it works, but they'd be like, I want this, I want this, I want it done like this. And that's what they would like. And it just, yeah, the one boy I always talk about is the one that never had his first kiss, but he wanted all this stuff done to him. He was already into, and I told him, what are you going to do to a girl one day? If you're into this stuff, what are you going to do to your first girlfriend? So I just realized I was part of the problem. And this is while I was still at the height of my career, just thinking, what am I doing? I'm not making things better. I'm making things worse for a lot of people. And it went from clients just being these old, rich men to young boys that have saved up all their pocket money just to come in and, yeah, hurt themselves.
Yeah, that would have been incredibly difficult to do. I can imagine that must have taken a toll on you, which kind of leads me to my next question. Like, how are you doing emotionally through all of this, right? Like, I imagine, like, I know you say it felt good in some sense because you yourself had been hurt, but
Mm.
was there a part of you that found it challenging to deal with that and to see these young people coming in with broken lives?
Oh, I was also very broken inside, but yes, that was part of what also opened my eyes. But I did have throughout that time multiple suicide attempts that I just could not go through. I knew that I was going to be in this industry forever because remember, no ID. I was going to be in that industry forever. I had no way out. So I always made a plan that I would have to do this when my time started running out in the industry. Like, I can't end up being one of those, even though a woman can do it for as long as she can, because there's brothels that have grandmas in there. I didn't want to be one of those people. So it was always on my cards that that is how I'm going to have to leave because no ID, couldn't find work anywhere, couldn't get government assistance. How was I going to get the pension one day if I don't even have ID? So it was something that I was going to do. When was the case? I was not sure, but yeah, I had my exit plan already sorted out. And the sad thing is, my family knew what I was doing. My family could easily have gone and got my ID for me. But my sister, who I said was my biggest bully since childhood, had convinced my dad that it can't be done. Oh, she lied, first of all, and said that she was trying to help me get my ID. Rubbish. She never called me. And she said that, well, she told me that at a certain age, the government cannot help certain people, like the parents can't help them. And I told her I've even spoken to a lawyer. Of course you can. But no, she had him convinced that no, it can't be done, even knowing what I was going through. It was just made me. So imagine your family knowing what you have to do for money to survive and not really jumping in and stepping up and saying, listen, we will help you. Like, it just made me feel just garbage inside over the years. So of course I had that exit plan in mind. When it became too much, this is what I was going to do, and I need to do something that cannot be reversed. I would even research it online at some of these horrible websites that a client actually showed me, um, stuff that I could do that could not bring me back. Not like the overdoses where I was had to wake up in hospital.
That's terrible. So, I mean, obviously, it did take a toll on you. You're at a point where you're suicidal.
Yeah.
Um, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine what it'd be like to have your family know that you're
Yeah.
doing that and then not be able to help you. And you have no other income source because you don't have ID, so you can't
No.
get government assistance.
No.
Um, Times like this in the podcast are hard. It's not always obvious what to say. I'm genuinely really sorry that you'd been through that. Like, uh, it must have been. I'm sure even now it's incredibly traumatic. But your story does take a really good turn. So
Oh, it goes bad before it goes good.
that's true. That's true. So let's get to that. Let's get to that bad part so we can get to that good part.
Yeah, when COVID hit, like 2019, on top of the world, winning awards, doing great in the industry, making so much money. And then COVID hits 2020, and I was not prepared. Like, I could not get government assistance. I couldn't get what everyone was getting, like the COVID relief pay or something, because I was not, no ID. I couldn't. get anything. Yeah, my rent was so expensive. I still paying the same rent that from where I was with my ex-husband. It was the rent of two people. And yeah, it was eating into my savings that almost a year, COVID lockdown. And then the next year, oh my goodness, that completely cleaned me out. And I was even speaking to my family on the phone, speaking to my sister and my dad. They even knew that I was like at my wit's end, just saying I need my ID. But my sister was like, no, no, I'm sorry, you're a prostitute, you're a junkie. No, no, no. So even the heartlessness, I saw her true nature that you hate me and you want me to die was my whole attitude. And my dad 100% would always take her side ever since childhood. By then, I'd lost contact with my mum because of something that happened between my mum and sister. My mum moved over to Perth, didn't have any contact with her. And I was got this um, lease from the landlord that said that I have to move out because he's selling the building. And I had nowhere to live, no place to even go to. I didn't even have an income that could even pay for a new place. And then around that time, my best friend, who was on as much medication as me, had passed away. I just one day got a message from someone saying, I'm so sorry. And she had not woken up. She was taking the same amount of medication as me, even the one that said to me, you have to constantly go to the doctor, get your blood checked. This girl was very cautious and she did not wake up one day. And around that time, same month, my cat passes away. And I'm thinking, can this get any worse? It's like stuff is just going down and down. And that's when I decided this is it. This is the sign. This is what I've been waiting for. So I tied that noose to the side of the stairs and I was standing on the edge of the stairs because there's no railing on my stairs from because I kind of lived in the attic space. So I tied it to the stairs and I was ready to jump and I think this is it. There's no looking back. All I saw was it's bleak. So I was ready to jump. And then before I did it, I sat down on the stairs and I thought, okay, if I pray, because I remember at church, you pray and you don't go to hell. That's what scared me the most was going to hell. So I just prayed and I said, God, I'm so sorry. I know I deserve this. But yeah, I was ready to jump. But yeah, God, I know why things are getting so bad for me right now. I deserved everything that I've done. But you understand why I've got to do this. So I stood up again and I was ready to jump and I could have sworn I felt something very warm around me. And it just, yeah, it felt like it felt happy. Around that time, I was coming off a lot of medication, but I just suddenly that feeling disappeared and I just felt very warm, like something warm around my waist, holding me and just making me feel on my spirit saying, you're going to be okay. You're going to be all right. I'm here. And it's like, I just, almost like that prodigal son moment when you come back to your parents and they say, listen, I've been waiting for you. It was no judgment of who I was. It was, I'm here. You're going to be okay. So I just said, I'm so like, what am I going to do? Like, why bother saving me? What am I going to do? I'm in this horrible position. And I just felt it say, open the Bible, open the Bible. And I quickly, because I did have a Bible as a prop there that I used to use for the wrong thing. So I ran and I opened the Bible. The first thing I opened to was Mark, the book of Mark. And I thought, hang on, I should call my friend Mark. So I ran to the phone and I said, Mark, listen, I'm about to lose my place. I'm about to be homeless. I was blubbering over the phone. And Mark said, listen, I've got a spare bedroom here. Calm down, just pack your stuff and get over here. And that was when, okay, the living situation is sorted out. So I just thought, okay, my answers are in the Bible. So I read about the word stood out to me was prostitute. And I went, hang on, there's prostitutes in the Bible. It was Rahab the prostitute. And I read it. I went, what? The Bible is not just saints and virgins. There's prostitutes. They never told us about this when I went to church. And it kind of shows how God had redeemed her because of her faith. And that's what kind of, at my moment, I realized, hang on, like I am worthy. I never felt worthy. I never felt loved. I felt the porn industry, I'm sorry, the adult industry understood me and made me feel worthy. But at that moment, I felt worthy because God does recognize me. To think that this woman was Jesus's great grandmother. And God does not make mistakes. He made that woman for a reason. It's almost like women like me can see that we are noticed and God does love us and He can change us. So that's what kind of completely changed my heart at that moment. So as I moved to my friend Mark's place, and I was focused on the Bible, I was listening to sermons, I was now viewing God without a pastor telling me how I should view Jesus. And I developed a whole new relationship with Jesus. I just said, Jesus, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, but I'm all yours. I want you lead my life. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know where I'm going to go, but it's all yours, God. You just guide me of where you think I should go. But it's like God's revealing who I really am deep down, because for years I was known as Contessa Doll. And it was this fake personality and this fake persona. But now God is revealing who Tessa Willaims is. And it was started with going to a church. Like I went to Hillsong because Hillsong stands out. Good message, nice church, but it didn't feel like a family atmosphere. So on my walk, because I like to walk every night, I walked past Echo Church, and all I could hear from the speakers outside is "You belong here." It was Pastor Andrew. And then I thought, okay, God, this has to be a sign. So I went back a week later, and as soon as I walked in, everyone like as soon as you walked in, I'm not that kind of person. I'm kind of introvert. People turned around and smiled at me and walked up to me, and I thought, oh no, I thought I was just going to slip in and slip out. So I went. They were talking to me, asking me questions. Welcome to Echo Church, and just really sweet and inviting, and telling me to come sit with them. And afterwards, the Pastor Nolene, Pastor Andrew's wife, came up to me and spoke to me and said, what's your name? What's your testimony? And I said, my name's Tessa Willaims, and I'm not ready to share my testimony as yet. And she goes, okay, when you're ready, you tell me. And then a week later, like I told, around that time, Mum got in touch with me. And Mum decided she's going to help me get my ID, because I told her this is how how I was surviving. And she helped me get my ID, and like that happens much later. But I said to Mum, "Do I tell these people the truth? Like, what do I do?" And she said, "Tell them, and if they don't accept you, go to the next church. You've got nothing to lose." So I went back a week later, and Pastor Nolene, same thing, walked straight over to me and said, "So who are you, and what's your testimony? You can tell me." And I said, I explained the whole story to her. I said, I used to be a sex worker. And it was, Mum decided to help me get my ID back. So imagine living for nearly 10 years without ID. So Mum was in Perth, was able to do it that way. And the day before, I think the day before, they called me. She had to contact the Department of Home Affairs, and they said to me, sorry, it's impossible because you have no ID whatsoever. You've been off systems for a long time. You're going to have to redo it from start to finish. And that Sunday I was crying, and I was with Pastor Millie, and the two of us prayed. And the next day they called up and said, after reviewing your application, we decided to put it through. So yeah, from there straight away, I got my ID back. The first thing I did was I enrolled in college, and just got my certificate 3, which was my year 12 equivalency. I got my working with children thing online, my police check. And so I could start serving in kids ministry, because that was my goal, because they told me I'd be so good working in kids ministry because I'm always with the kids. And that's the first thing that I did. My God, I was on fire. All I did was just constantly, and I had to go get my apply for Centrelink in the meantime while I was studying, looking for jobs because I hadn't worked a normal job in a long time. So it was like kind of making up for lost time, because it's only been a few years now and I've achieved so much just from making up for lost time. But I enrolled, did I changed my mind. I did business medical admin. Half from there, I decided to go do AIN from there, just like medical assistant type of thing. And I just became focused, but not knowing that with God was using the skills that I had learned from BDSM into nursing. It is not that much different. Trust me. We work with some pretty interesting situations that they thought that I was a natural when it came to dealing with stuff that made other people sick. And yeah, it's been God revealing to me who I really am and what He can take the like negative past, and make it into something positive. And also from there, it's outreach. From there, I was one day I was on my bed and I was crying and I said, God, I feel so alone. I feel so isolated and alone. Everyone at church has got a family. Some people my age have got grandkids, and I don't have anyone, God. And God said to me, look around, you have friends. And that's when I was scrolling through TikTok and I saw Pastor Brittany in America. She used to be a sex worker, now she's a pastor with a family. And then I saw the outreach service that I'm now working for. And I wrote them an email and said, I feel so alone being a Christian coming from, even though I have an amazing church, I feel alone. No one has, my journey is so different to theirs. And they wrote back the same thing that God has said to me is look around you, you have friends. And that's when it's like God kind of revealed people from my past that I used to work with in the sex industry have become Christians. It's like out of nowhere, they started contacting me and saying, oh, I heard that you're a Christian. And another one said, oh, I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw suddenly you're a Christian. Wow, me too. It's like God slowly started revealing them. And I've got this amazing group of friends that used to be sex workers. We can kind of bond about the past and how God has changed our lives. And I've gone to do outreach work, which is helping other women, because I know a lot of women in that industry need help. They feel very alone. They feel a lot of them are not there by choice. A lot of them made a horrible decision and can't get out again. So I always tell them, listen, if you need a sister, you need a mum, you need a friend, I'm here. I'm here to help you because I've walked in your shoes. I know what you're going through.
Praise God. That's a
Mm.
lot to cover. That's a lot to
Yeah.
give praise to God for, and congratulations to you too, because it's not just God doing that in your life. You know, you have to play your own part in that, and He partners with us, and that's a lot of work. You know, so congratulations. So you doing nursing now? Is that
Um, yeah, I've gone back to doing hospitality for a while so I can save up for a car
cool?
because the nursing, the travel nursing was not covering enough shifts, especially if you don't have a car. A travel
Like,
nurse, you need a car. And I was working for an agency that you needed a car for, even though it was here and there. So I've gone back to hospitality for a while, getting some good shifts, getting some saving up to get that car this year so I can go back to it. But I miss it so much. Oh my goodness. I love it. Even the downside of it, I love it. I got very close to working with a lot of, because I did my placement at a nursing home and I got to just be with a lot of older people that were just absolutely lovely.
praise God. That's so good. One of the other questions that I have for you before we begin to wrap up and talk
Mm,
about what you're doing now is you've kind of I was going to ask you about the advice that you give to younger women, but we've kind of covered that. You've kind of covered some of the darker sides of the industry. You've
yeah.
covered like, you know, your own journey out of it. So what I want to ask you now is kind of the flip side of that question. What would you say to men who consume these services who maybe, you know, whether it's watching online pornography or it's actually attending brothels. You know, we were talking before we started recording, and they say, "Oh, you know, the girls love it. It's all good." What would you say to men who are in that position?
I'll say that trust me from experience, from what I've seen and what I've done to young men, that's where it's going to lead you. You're not going to be able to have a healthy relationship. You're not going to see women the same. You're going to see women as objects. And that is very, I see it happening a lot now online and how they speak about women, how they really objectify women. And I think it's okay to objectify women because some women are objectifying themselves. You're going to end up in a position where the most perverted stuff is what turns you on. Like, I just think back to the times that these young guys of what they were having done to themselves. And I'm not talking about anything that is like 50 Shades. I'm talking about stuff out of a horror movie like Hostel or Saw. Yeah, that is what is probably going to happen to you. You think that you're safe just by consuming porn? No, you're not at all. It's going to change the way you have relationships. One day when you meet a beautiful young girl who's very innocent and she does not perform like that OnlyFans girl, she's not going to be enough for you. You're going to end up leaving her, cheating on her, just, yeah, not having a beautiful relationship with her. And I saw it so many times when I worked in that industry of men who would marry virgins and then a week later end up coming to one of these places and say that my girl doesn't perform very well in bed and she's not doesn't perform like a porn star. So they're coming and using that as an excuse to come and see sex workers is all because she doesn't perform to that standard that they're seeing or that standard that they're used to with the girls in the brothel, how they're comparing her instead of growing together and loving each other and just learning from each other. It is straight away, nope, just yes, I saw the effects of porn firsthand when I worked in that industry. And yes, I made money off people being affected by porn and just wanting to go into something a little bit harder. That's why I speak about it quite a lot. And I really want to say to young men in particularly that that is your future, that you're not going to be happy in a relationship, especially when you have a porn addiction. Porn addiction doesn't lead anywhere good. It's like any other drug. And I'm talking about even a little porn consumed is going to lead to somewhere big. And it may not happen to some of you, but it will happen to a majority of you.
I appreciate you sharing that. You know, the statistics of pornography consumption, even within the church, are really alarming, and that's something we were speaking about before. And obviously, with your testimony, your admonishing young men and women comes with a lot more authority than it would from, say, someone like myself. So I really appreciate you doing that. This
Yeah, and
kind of leads us up. Yeah, please, please go.
sorry. And I really appreciate you bringing me on to speak about this because I have had a Christian podcast want to bring me on. And then the last minute they said no, that it would be bad for their image and their sponsorships and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, I'm trying to warn young men about the effects of what's going to happen to them on porn. I don't care about your sponsorships. I don't know why bringing me on would make any difference to that because it's like God sometimes just screams on my spirit. You've got to come out and warn people about it because it's happening worse and worse now. And I've seen it now when I'm doing outreach and they're young girls that are working in the brothels, like disturbingly young girls that are working in brothels, thinking they're going to be the next Anna Paul, or they've been watching TikTok videos from the Bop House where these girls are very, very young OnlyFans creators making millions and millions of dollars, just making sex work look like a lot of fun and just a great way to make money. I'm sorry, you're in the lowest brothel imaginable, making $75. And $75 in a brothel plus a cut is like nothing. They thought they were going to make it big, but nope, they took them to the lowest of the lowest places that you can work in. And this is what I'm trying to warn people about young girls. And don't think that young girls are safe because I've seen men work in the sex industry as well. And these are straight men and they've gone in thinking they're going to make some quick cash and they end up working and servicing other men, which what we call gay for pay. They end up having to go make money there. So nobody is safe there. Only a very few become millionaires. Like it is glamorized, and that few that are glamorized, have you noticed there's not a lot of people? It's only like a handful that we see in the media constantly that are making millions. They made more than sports stars or doctors. That's a very compared to the average OnlyFans girl that makes like at the most 300 a month. It's not even that much. And when you see it's not that much, you're going to go into another part of the industry where you think it's going to make up for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love those practical warnings because it is something that I think is on the rise in pop culture. And as we begin to close now, I just always like to
Mm-hmm.
share the gospel with people that Jesus Christ really lived. He really died, that you can read about him in the Bible, that you can experience him. He's alive today. He's acting in the world. Especially now we're recording, it's Easter.
Mm-hmm.
And we're remembering internationally his death and his resurrection. And he's changed my life and he's changed Tessa's life. And I would just
Mhm.
encourage you, please read the gospel, go to your local Bible believing church. I love that you're part of a church. I think, Christian community is so important. It's
It
really hard
is.
to do the Christian life alone. So please, guys, really, really seek him, because it's the most important thing that you can possibly do with your life is to figure these things out. So don't delay, don't put it off till tomorrow. Seek him today. Um, and if you're enjoying the podcast, if you've enjoyed this episode, I would encourage you, please like, subscribe, share, all those things. I know it's annoying when YouTube creators ask you to do that. It just helps get the video out to far more people, and it blesses more people by sharing Tessa's story with a wider audience. So we'd be very grateful for that. Tessa, people are going to definitely want to keep up with you and what's going on in your life. So you're going to send me your Instagram,
Yes.
and well, I've already got your Instagram. I'll link your Instagram in the bio below so that people can find that really easily in the description box. Um, are there any final words that you have for our listeners?
Final words is just put everything in God's hands, even in times of trouble. Like even now, when I'm going through times of stress, I just got to say, Jesus, take the wheel. It's in your hands. That's my best advice for everyone: is put everything in God's hands.
Amen. And again, I want to thank you. I thanked you before, but you've had a busy week. It's a public holiday here. You've decided to show up and share your story, and I'm so grateful. So thank you so much for your time, sister.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me on.